Hey everyone, Kelly here. And recently I was thinking of doing a TBR for the end of the year, and I was kind of thinking through what I was going to kind of prioritize. And then the Goodreads Choice Award things came out, a bunch of people did reactions, and usually I'm not really like inspired by those, but as I was looking through them, I realized I've bought a lot of books this year. I joined Book of the Month. I also just bought more new releases than normal. And I realized that I had bought a book from almost every category this year and haven't read it. So I thought, well, maybe as my TBR for the rest of the year, I should read those books that I bought this year that are on the Goodreads Choice Awards. So this is gonna be my TBR for the rest of the year. I also am like in a few books as well, but I thought, the voting will end at the end of November. So, I'll read as many of these before the end of the month, but then even after the voting is done, I figure these are all books that I either bought or I got like an advanced listening copy from Libro FM. So they're all ones I purposely went out looking for, either in the bookstore or on the app. And so I would like to read most of these before the end of the year. Might not get to all of them because it turned out to be a lot. I owned 12 of the books from the awards, and then I have audiobooks from 5 more. So I don't know if I'll finish all 17, but this will at least give me something to pull from over November and December. So let's go through each category. There's only 4 categories that I didn't have a book for. So the first category was fiction, and the book that I had bought was Cursed Daughters by Oyinkan Braithwaite. I really loved My Sister the Serial Killer, and so I've had this on my wish list, knowing it was coming out at the end of 2025. For the whole year, I've been looking forward to this book, and then it was on Book of the Month. So this was my pick for November, so I definitely want to get to this one. And then for historical fiction, the one that I had bought was The Hounding by Zenobi Purvis. And I'd really wanted to read this all fall. I've been thinking about this book, but I've just been involved with other books. So definitely want to read it. I think for me, November still feels, very fall, still feels like kind of in this witchy kind of vibe. This isn't exactly witches. It's people that are accusing girls of being witches. So it's kind of the whole mob mentality around witch hunts. And that still feels like a fall vibe. It's a short book, so definitely want to get to that one in November. The next category is mystery thriller. And I actually had already read a couple of these, but then I also have one that is a advanced listening copy. So, since I have a channel, I don't know if you know Libro FM, if you have some sort of social media presence, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, you can get advanced listening copies for audiobooks. And sometimes I just don't get around to them, but since it's in the Goodreads Choice Awards, I want to listen to some of these. So the mystery thriller I have is Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister. And that's one I've been interested in that author. I haven't read anything by her, but she's been in the Goodreads Choice Awards for a couple years. She's become really popular, so I do want to give that one a try. And then we have the romance category, and I own one, and then I have an audiobook. I also picked this up from the library. I have this on audiobook from Libro FM, but I also just saw it this week in the library, so I picked it up. It's Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. I meant to listen to this right away after it came out, but then I was reading a bunch of other romances at that time, and so sometimes when I've read a lot of the same genre, I'm not in the mood for it, so that's why this didn't happen when this first came out. And so at the end, usually December, I want to listen to a lot of romances. So if I don't get this in November, this will probably be in December. And then I also own First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. And this one has people that are they're radio hosts. And I think this looks super cute. So I definitely would like to read that one. And then we move to romantasy, and surprisingly, I actually own one and had 2 audiobooks for this category, which was surprising to me. I own Silver Elite by Danny Francis. This was a Book of the Month club, and I did actually start this one, so I'm almost 50% into this one. So this one is definitely happening because I'm already halfway through it. And then I have the audiobook for 2 others. I have The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig, and her books are romantasy, but with some gothic vibes is what I've heard. So I actually, in the romantasy realm, I'm really interested in this author, and I own one of her books, One Dark Window. but that was from a couple years ago, and this is the one from 2025, so I might end up listening to this one since it's in the awards, but I would really like to try this author because I think that she might be someone I'm actually interested in romanticy, because I'm very picky about what kind of romanticy I want to read. I think it has to have a certain vibe for me personally. And the other one I have is Immortal by Sue Lynn Tan. And that one is, I had read, and now I don't remember what it's called, but she had a different duology. I think it was called The Celestial Kingdoms duology, but I can't remember what the first book was. And it was definitely more fantasy than romance. And this one is under the romantasy category. So I'm interested to see if it really feels like romantasy or if it feels like fantasy with a romantic element. I think this one is a standalone, so I'm more interested in that one than some of the ones that are parts of series. And the next category is fantasy, and I actually own 4 of the books from the fantasy category. I was like really into the fantasy that came out this year, and then I haven't read any of it yet. So all of these I was super excited about. Hopefully I get a couple of them read before, so I can actually vote in the awards. I have The Incandescent by Emily Tesh, which I heard kind of has like school vibes, but a middle-aged main character who's like the teacher, and that's like way more interesting to me than like dark academia that's centered around the students. I'm not really into that, but having an older character, and I've read other books by Emily Tesh and enjoyed them, so I'm looking forward to reading that one. One I got from Book of the Month was Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber, and I have never read anything by this author. I know she did Caraval. I didn't read that series, but this one seemed interesting. I've now forgotten what it was about. I think it is kind of like maybe historical. I don't know. When I read it, I'll let you know. But it's also short, which a lot of fantasy is so huge that it's kind of nice to pick up a shorter fantasy sometimes. So that might be more tempting to me because it's a shorter one. And then we have, T. Kingfisher is one of my favorites, Hemlock and Silver. And so probably we'll get to this one. I had just read a couple months ago her book from last year. And so I'm ready to read another one. Sometimes I get in these like times where I read a lot of T. Kingfisher and then I have to take a break. And so I think it was like in August, I read a bunch of T. Kingfisher and I was like, okay, need to take a break. And now I can pick up more of her, because I also have from the library another one of her 2025 releases. She had 3 2025 releases this year. So we'll see if I read just both of them. And then I have The Raven's Scholar by Antonio Hodgson. I've been hearing great things about this. The only problem is that this one is pretty big. So with so many other things I want to read, I don't know that I'll get to this big one. Also, I don't love starting too many series at once when the other ones haven't come, like the next book hasn't come out yet. So I might pick some of the more standalone fantasies as opposed to a big series one. And then for sci-fi, I had one book. I have Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor, and I really want to read this one because I got this beautiful copy, and I love that it's like a book within the book. So like the inside cover is the book that is inside the book, the sci-fi book. So I think this is kind of like a combination of literary fiction and sci-fi, because I think the book itself is probably more literary fiction, and then the book that the author is writing is sci-fi. So that would be one that I would be interested in reading. I'm interested in reading all these, but there's a hierarchy sometimes. And then horror, I had one. I have already read another one in the horror category, and then I have one, The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas. I had read The Hacienda and really enjoyed it. So I've been like interested in reading her other 2 books, the one that came out like a couple years ago and this one. And so I got this last month as an add-on for my book of the month, because I think it would be a fun one to read while it still feels fall and all that. I still very much have the fall vibes. Then the next category was debut author, and I do have one audiobook from that category. I have When the Tides Held the Moon by Vanessa Vita Kelly. And I don't know much about this, and I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it, but it looked interesting when I picked it up from Libro FM, so we'll see if I get around to it. The next category moves into the young adult ones, and for young adult sci-fi fantasy, I did have Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. And I had actually started this a couple months ago, but I was like really Hunger Games'd out. So I had reread the first 2 books in the Hunger Games, and I had read the other prequel all in a row. And I picked this one up and I was like, I've read these 2 close together. I need to take a break. So now it's been a couple months. I feel confident I can pick this back up now that I'm not as close to reading like 3 other books in the series. And I am looking forward to this because this is Haymitch's story. So I think this one will definitely get done. And then the other just plain young adult category, I did have Under the Same Stars by Libba Bray. And this is a historical fiction that takes place in 3 different timelines. I don't really know anything else other than that. But it was a beautiful book, which is part of why I picked it up, was like the beauty of the book. And I hope I like it. I've liked other things by Libba Bray because she wrote The Diviners, right? So I had liked The Diviners. So I'm excited to try this one out. And that's it. I don't have anything in the audiobook category, which is surprising since I read a lot of audiobooks, but none of those audiobooks that were on that list were ones that I was actively interested in reading, really. I mean, maybe Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I don't know that that'll happen this year. Maybe in the future. And then I didn't have anything from the nonfiction categories, which is fine. So yeah, that's a lot of books, but like I said, this is like kind of things I want to pull from for the next 2 months, and hopefully read some of these before the end of voting, so I can at least like put in my vote for the Goodreads Choice Awards. Not that it matters at all, but I just happen to have a lot of them that were on the list this year, especially a lot of the fantasy ones. Like maybe if I read several of those, I would have more of a comparison and not have just read one thing from the category. But it also doesn't matter if I've only read one, I'll still vote in that category. So that's it for me. Those are all of the books that I'm kind of thinking about reading before the end of the year. Like I said, I'm already in some books, so I probably will finish the ones that I'm in the middle of. I won't necessarily go through all of those. And who knows, I might get bored of this project by December and want to do something else. But for at least now, this is what I'm interested in reading for the next couple months. Let me know if you've read some of these books and that you think that I should like really get to them because they were like favorites, or if you have any other 2025 releases. This is like, I'm thinking back on what I've bought this year, this 2025, and I had a couple more book of the month books that I had bought that were 2025, but otherwise almost everything I bought that was new releases showed up in the Goodreads Choice Award. So I guess I'm in the popular opinion, because since it is kind of like a more popular kind of award as opposed to like a critical, like a literary critical kind of thing. So that's it for me. If you want to chat about anything down below, I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.